Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is Gabriel. I just wanted to come in and make a quick video. Kind of maybe build off this video and start like a series of kind of apologetic-based videos on defending the faith, defending how it is we are to live out our faith, and specifically maybe approaching some of the verses that people bring up that espouse the idea that the Torah has been abolished or done away with. There's a local radio show which airs on a station here in my hometown every Friday, and that station or that radio show is called Ask the Preacher, and it's basically hosted by a preacher and a couple other people where you can call in and you can ask this preacher anything. And I like to call in. I like to ask questions of people. Not to instigate or not to poke or prod or anything like that, but just to pick their brains about things. In particular, ever since coming into this idea of walking in Torah and being Torah obedient, I like to pick their brains about why they think that we should not be Torah obedient. So last Friday I called in. Well, actually it was 2 Fridays ago. I called in and talked to Pastor Wayne, his name is, and just kind of discussed some things with him about. Started with the Sabbath, and it kind of went on to the Torah, whether or not the Torah, aka the law, has been abolished. One of the points that he brought up is Colossians 2:14. So what I want to kind of do is dissect this verse for you all and figure out why do people bring this verse up, and then secondly, how do you defend your stance towards the Torah when people bring this verse up. And I just kind of want to equip other people so that when they come across this verse, or people that throw this verse out there, you'll have kind of a leg to stand on, I guess. So he brought up Colossians 2:14, which basically says, well, let me see if I can pull it up in my scriptures here. It's kind of a windy day, so but yeah, I'll try to do this real quick. I'm going to be reading from the Complete Jewish Bible. It's the Bible that was in my car, so it might not be your preferred translation, but okay. Colossians 2 verse 14. I'll back up to verse 11 and read from verse 11 on through 14, but also, it was in union with him that you were circumcised with a circumcision not done by human hands, but accomplished by the stripping away the old nature's control over the body. In this circumcision done by the Messiah, you were buried along with him by being immersed, and in union with him you were also raised up along with him by God's faithfulness that worked when he raised Yeshua from the dead. You were dead because of your sins, that is, because of your foreskin, that is, because of your foreskin, your old nature. But God made you alive along with Messiah by forgiving all your sins. And here's the key verse, kind of the Moneyball verse that people throw out there, verse 14. He wiped away the bill of charges against us. Because of the regulations, it stood as a testimony against us, but he removed it by nailing it to the cross, or the execution stake, as this translation reads. So a lot of people throw this verse out saying this is a more Torah-friendly translation, but some translations say that there is he nailed the ordinances, the commands, or something of that effect to the cross. And this pastor in this radio show threw this verse out at me, saying that is why the law has been abolished. So I just want to kind of go into an email response that I had for him. We didn't have time on the show to really go into it and for me to respond really as fully as I would have liked, but I did email him today, just kind of a thoughtful response. Sometimes that's better too, if you're talking to people, if you're engaging them in apologetic type discussions, especially about something as weighty as the Torah. It's good sometimes to say, I think we might just want to take a step back, and maybe I'll go back and look at this verse, and do you mind if I email you like a response of sorts? I'm a lot better at communicating my thoughts through writing or through typing. So I would really suggest that if you come across a very weighty conversation with a person, and maybe they throw some things at you that you don't fully know, or maybe you even know, and you just kind of want to just take a breather from the conversation, this is a really good way to do it. It's just say, hey, do you mind if I write your email address down and I'll get back to you? And that shows patience. That shows a willingness to, I guess, humility. Even though you may know the answer to that, you're at least willing to take a time out and not necessarily want to prove yourself right in that situation. Because sometimes you get in these discussions and both parties just want to prove themselves right, you know. So if we can kind of take a step back from that pride and just email the person later on, I find that to be pretty effective sometimes. But here's my email response about Colossians 2:14. I'm just going to kind of read this to you all. But good afternoon, Pastor Wayne. I am the guy who called into the show 2 Fridays ago and spoke with you about the Sabbath and the Torah and whether or not they apply to believers still today. I thank you again for having me on, and I apologize for taking so much time on that program. It is a topic which has consumed my heart and mind for the past couple of years, and I love discussing it with other well-learned people such as yourself. I've been studying some of the points you brought up on the last show, which countered the idea that the law is still a relevant set of instructions for the followers of Yeshua. One of your points rested on Colossians 2, specifically verse 14, which reads, blotting out the handwriting of ordinances that was against us, which was contrary to us, and took it out of the way, nailing it to the cross. That's the King James Version. That's the one that he cited, actually. You mentioned on your show that this is proof that the law has been done away with, as it, in other words, the handwriting of ordinances, was nailed to the cross. After studying into this further, I have found some information which is actually counter to your interpretation. So here's kind of where I get into like the nitty-gritty linguistics of it all. But firstly, the phrase in Greek, choragraphon tois dogmasin, I hope I pronounced that right, is better rendered as the record of debt. The ESV translation reads this way. Choragraphon is similar to the word calligraphy in that it is a handwritten record of something. So calligraphy is where you write a letter. You use, some people get trained in calligraphy, making your handwriting look nice. Whereas dogmasin has the connotation of a man-made or man's opinion / tradition, where we get the word dogma. So if I were living in the 1st century and I purchased something from a local vendor, that vendor would keep a record of debt, obviously, if I wasn't able to pay them right away. Many times this record of debt was engraved into a clay tablet when paid, and when paid, the shopkeeper would smash the tablet with a hammer or drive a stake or nail through it. And the shopkeeper would not destroy his shop or even make everything free to the public. He would just wipe the slate clean and give everyone a fresh start. He would remember their debts no more. In a somewhat similar manner, in our banks now, a sharp instrument like the blade of a knife is driven through a check, making a hole through it, and furnishing the teller of the bank a sign of or evidence that it has been paid. I think Paul is making a reference to this common practice. Here is an excerpt from an article written on this phrase. The Greek word choragraphon is a compound word that is formed by combining 2 words, care, or hand, and grapho, which means to write or engrave. And the word choragraphon appears nowhere else in the Greek New Testament, nor does it appear anywhere in the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Old Testament. However, the word does appear in extra-biblical Greek documents. It is in these documents that we learn that choragraphon is a legal term. It is a word that was used to refer to the written evidence of a person's guilt in a courtroom. It is the written record of a person's crimes, the laws he has broken, and the penalty he owes for his law breaking. In ancient times, the accuser would present the choragraphon from the middle of the courtroom, called the to meso, or the middle. The exact same term Paul uses when he says the choragraphon was taken out of the way. And I actually looked into it. In the Greek there, he does say the record of debt was taken to meso, or out of the way. So he's making a clear allusion to the ancient Greek practices of law, which I'm sure in the Colossians would have been very well versed in. So we must understand that the record of debt has been destroyed, but not the value of goods which we've been given, salvation and the right to be fellow heirs of the covenant promises. That being said, I submit to you that Paul is stating in Colossians 2 that the Father, through his Son's perfect sacrifice, has canceled out the handwritten record of debt that we've accumulated via breaking his commandments. But Paul is not saying the Torah, God's set of instructions, has been destroyed or abolished. Yeshua said himself that not a yod or a stroke would pass from the Torah until everything is accomplished and heaven and earth pass away. Neither of these things have happened yet. So I just told him I look forward to his thoughts. So that's just, if that helps someone understand Colossians 2:14, it's a tough verse to really get through, but when you break through the translator's bias in some cases, look in the Greek, study the historical context. Like here, I mean, you have to know, or at least have a general understanding of Greek law. Which, who would think that reading and understanding, scriptures in the New Testament would require an understanding in Greek law? But Paul, being a Roman citizen, and just being a general scholar, I think he would have made a masterful lawyer too in his day. Had a working knowledge of Greek law and how it is that accusations were brought in court. So he made a clear allusion. So it's really important that we dig down and wrestle with the historical context of verses, and it could completely change your understanding of the verse and how you apply it to your life. So hope that helps someone with Colossians 2:14, and we'll see you in our next video.